For the City of Evans, June 16th, 2020. I'm Brian Rudy, the mayor. I'll call the meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mayor Rudy?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Clark?
Mark?
Here.
Councilmember Spear? Here. Councilmember Johnson? Present. Councilmember Neal? Present. Councilmember Castle? Here. Councilmember Mortensen? Here.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is audience participation. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address City Council on any item not on the agenda this evening? Seeing none in the audience, City Clerk, do we have anyone virtually that would like to address City Council?
We do not.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda?
There are no changes to the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
I second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next item, consent agenda. Item A, approval of the June 2nd, 2020 City Council meeting minutes. And item B, consideration of ordinance number 718-20 regarding the Vera right-of-way of vacation, second reading.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item 7, old business. Item A, public hearing, consideration of ordinance number 720-20, an ordinance amending titles 3, 5, and 18 of the Evans Municipal Code to allow mobile food vending in the city of Evans. I'll reopen the public hearing and hear from staff.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, members of the council. At your May 19th work session, council gave direction to staff to prepare an ordinance that would line up the code with our desired food truck practices, as food trucks are becoming I think, an emerging dining and entertainment option in Evans. Took some work because several sections of the code need to be amended. I will ask our Community Development Director, Ann Johnson, to just summarize some of the high-level changes. I do have a process note for council. Today, our city attorney provided some feedback that resulted in some a couple non-substantive changes to this ordinance. The effect of the changes generally are to clarify the ordinance, to minimize the chance for errors when the company that we use takes adopted ordinances and makes them part of the code. There's actually some trick to that. And so Scott had some good thoughts and some important thoughts for the ordinance on how to make it clearer for what's going in and what's coming out. So this and one other item that I'll mention as we go tonight have some changes. We will be incorporating those practices going forward. But tonight, if council chooses to approve this ordinance on first reading, you might approve it as amended for first reading, just so that we're clear. With all that out of the way, I'll ask Ann to just summarize the ordinance, and we'll go from there.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of City Council. There are a lot of team members involved in preparing this ordinance for you this evening. I would like to thank Lauren Richardson, Karen Frawley, Jackie Trout, Rachel Daly, Kyle Fair, Thomas Croft, and Allison Moding for all of their work in bringing this together. There are 3 departments working on this one ordinance, so it did require a lot of organization. So the purpose of this proposal really is to allow mobile food vending in the city of Evans legally, and minor changes are being proposed to all 3 chapters. So this first one is a definition of mobile food vending. So this is consistent with a lot of research that Lauren performed from the city of Fort Collins, Greeley, Estes Park, Milliken, Johnstown, and Golden on what they currently do for mobile food vending. So this definition is consistent and will be in chapters 3, 5, and 18. This next slide is a highlight of 3 of the items in chapter 5. So the first one would be that there would be 5 days required to get all of the licenses and permits. And what we've done, instead of having 3 separate processes that a mobile food vendor would have to go through, we've bundled everything up into one, and the city clerk is going to be the shepherd of that project and that process and make sure that everybody is involved appropriately when and where they need to be. So instead of an applicant going to city clerk first and then going to business license and then going to planning, it's going to be bundled all together and seamless from the public's perspective. We'll be scurrying around a lot in the background, but the public will hopefully see a seamless process. The license requirements, we would like 2 photographs, similar to what people can get down at Walgreens for passport photos, 1 to be on site and 1 to stay at City Hall. And then there was a section in the code that had to do with bonding, and city clerk and city attorney have indicated that that is an obsolete provision. So we would just like to delete that in its entirety. The next section would be in chapter 18, which is the land use code, to add definitions of what is food. I know some of this seems silly, but when you get into a situation and you have to rely on the definitions to communicate, it's really important to have thorough definitions. So food, mobile food vending, a mobile food vending rally, what is a motor vehicle and what is a trailer. So those are all being proposed as outlined in your packet. The next item on your list, then, we really listened to what you all had to say at the work session, I believe on the 19th of May. And so some of the items, there will be no overnight unless it's a multi-use, a multi-day event. That the property that the mobile food vendor will be on, the sub-property can't have any violations, no nuisance code issues, no building code issues, no other planning code issues. So we want that property to welcome the food vendor that's not in violation. Compatibility issues. We added nuisance and odors, and that goes along with lighting, noise, negative traffic impacts are already in there, but we did add nuisance conditions and odors. Then also the location, it will be a mobile food vendor could be on private property or on city property, but not in public rights of way. And that reduces the traffic impact that could occur. And then also, temporary mobile food vendors are not allowed to occupy a single property for a duration greater than 10 days a month. Lauren performed some research. Fort Collins and Greeley do have some limitations, but it's not very clear. So we just thought we'd make it clear here, 10 days a month. They can be consecutive days. They don't have to be consecutive days. It could be every weekend during the month, but they just, 10 days is it because we don't want to compete with the brick and mortar restaurants. And then the final, again, just really represents that this was a very large collaborative process between 3 city departments. It was exciting to see everybody coming together. A lot of research was performed by Lauren Richardson, the city planner, again with Greeley, Windsor, Johnstown, Estes Park, Golden, and Fort Collins to really represent the best of industry practice for Northern Colorado and bring this to Evans so that we could have some more options legally. And that completes staff's presentation.
Thank you very much. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of this item? Is there anyone is there anyone online, Karen?
No.
Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in opposition of this issue? Okay, no, thank you. This city is the applicant, so there's no rebuttal. Are there any questions that need clarified before I close the public hearing from staff, from council?
I have no questions.
Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Council discussion?
I have a question.
In section B, number 5, it says, well, basically it says that there cannot be any signage except for what's on the vehicle. And I'm wondering, and yet we also say that they can have tents set up, some temporary structures. So I'm wondering why they can't have like a sandwich board out front, you know, and with directions or a menu or whatever, as long as it's not, you know, in the way of traffic or something.
We could add that in, but what we thought is we didn't, again, we wanted to minimize the visual confusion. Also, normally the food trucks are quite large themselves and have a big emblem on the truck. We didn't really want to have the sign twirlers out there, anything that would be causing potential, you know, traffic concerns. If council would like to see the ability to have a sandwich board, something else on site, we would be, you know, happy to add that in for the second reading.
Yeah, I mean, I understand the twirlers and that stuff, but I just, you know, for people, especially, you know, if there's an extenuated line, you know, it'd be very, especially in this day and age where we have to social distance in there, you know, it'd be nice if they could, you know, have a sandwich board, you know, with their menu so that you're prepared to when you get to the truck to order. That was just my question about that.
And I think a sandwich board with a menu is different than an advertising sign. So of course we would allow the sandwich board with a menu, or, you know, some kind of instructions would be allowed, but just not a sign saying, here we are, keep going down the road. Type of site identification signage.
Okay. Because that leads to another thing. I mean, it'd be kind of nice, like if, let's say they were at City Park and, you know, they needed to put a sign on the corner, you know, saying down the road, a sandwich, like I said, another sandwich board there.
I will definitely work with city attorney and the assistant city attorney to make sure any signage complies with it.
Yeah, I don't want them putting up signs on stop signs or something, but just, you know, something that is easily removed and can be out of the way, but what lends to more business. I'm trying to get it so that they have more visibility. I know it's a big food truck. It could not be. I mean, it looks like we can have a little hot dog stand that, you know, goes around. So it might not be a big food truck. It might be the ice cream man. I don't know. I just thought as long as it wasn't in the way that a smaller temporary sign would be appropriate and allowable.
I would have to agree with Councilmember Spear on that. That's actually a really good point that she brings up. I think, you know, having some kind of sign that they can put up, you know, near their food truck, or, you know, say a block or two away that says, hey, food truck today at City Park, or food truck today on the corner of 11th and 34th, you know, would be great. Something like that. That way that we can draw people to them, you know. So I would be in favor of something like that if we could do that.
Other council discussion?
Done.
No other discussion. I'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve ordinance 720-20 as amended.
I second.
I have a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 720-20 as amended.
Mayor,
Go ahead, Rich.
pardon me, could we have just clarification in the motion to, it sounds like council is open to, or I don't know if we heard direction, but I'd like to clarify, for limited signage that would not block traffic, that would, I guess that's what I've heard. So we'll do the best we can with that and bring it back in second reading.
Okay.
So,
Mr. Mayor, just to get further clarification, it sounds like we're talking about two different types of signs. One is the sandwich board sign that's in within a certain proximity to the vehicle, saying, you know, this is what I'm offering. and the other is a public information sign saying where the food trucks are going to be located.
I think they should be in close approximation to the vehicle. It should be like a menu board of some sort. Because, for example, the example that was brought up in regards to like City Park, like let's say it's Heritage Days, and they're there. I mean, people already know that we're going to have food trucks unless it's a venue that is not something like that, where they go to maybe some type of sporting event at like Riverside Park that is not city related, then that would be different. So I guess you would have to clarify that.
Yeah, and I'm also thinking too, like when we have garage sales or elections, we have the signs that you can step into the ground that are, that are easily removable. So I don't know if we want to say temporary signage. I mean, we have temporary all over this ordinance, so I don't know how we want to say that. I mean, are you guys okay with that too?
Let me ask you a question on that, and I'm okay with them, I think, but is that fair to our other businesses? Like, can Little Caesars just go stick Little Caesars with an arrow pointing down 23rd Avenue, and then we're getting into
Well, that's why I'm saying temporary.
But can
Well,
Little Caesars temporarily do it, and then McDonald's does it, and everybody does it, or is it?
Well,
I'm asking, I'm not arguing,
I guess we need to define temporary. I mean, if we're defining temporary for the tents and the location of the uses, then we probably need to put temporary in there.
Maybe for the period that
They're open.
that the food truck is operating
At that
is
location.
open and located on the property where the truck is operating the vehicle. Because, for instance, the mayor's example, a pizza place would not be allowed to put its sign in the right of way, off that property. So unless council would like to make an exception to the sign code for that, I think we'd want to limit the signage to the property where the truck is authorized to be.
I think it's exclusive to this ordinance.
So, yeah, maybe no, temporary signs are allowed for mobile food vendors at the location they're set up.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
they can put it up, but only on, like, if they're at Crabtree Brewing, they can put it at Crabtree.
Right.
Yeah.
And I also imagine the intent would be that the signs would meet the other requirements of the sign code, which would not, for instance, allow for very large signs on the side of the truck. Just because we wouldn't allow that on another business. So I think I think there's enough direction here. And I guess if the motion could just be clarified to allow for
Signage on
limited signage on the property, we'll bring that back.
Can I get another motion?
Yes, just one moment, I'm going to write that. Okay. So I move to approve ordinance 720-20 as amended to allow for limited signage. Does that work?
I'll second.
All right.
I have a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 720-20 as amended and to allow signage on the property it will be on. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item 8, new business, a public hearing, consideration of resolution number 14-2020, approving the special use permit for Quality Lube, a repair shop in the commercial C1 zone district. I will open the public hearing and hear from Steve.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an item that, if approved, would allow one of our businesses to expand. It would allow the Quality Lube to expand in its current location. And for further presentation, I would look to Community Development Director Ann Beth Johnson.
Thank you, Jim, and Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. The applicant is represented this evening by Ms. Kelsey Bruxford from Ag Professionals and is also here with the property owner. property is located on the west side of 23rd Avenue. It is located, this is Sam's Club right here. The current Quality Lube location is outlined in red. The expansion is to the lot immediately to the west, and the immediate plans are to serve as parking, overflow, and additional site circulation, as well as making some improvements to the property that will minimize some sediment transfer to neighbors and improve the drainage in the area. The special use permit is a permit process that is to allow a repair shop, which is how this is defined in the code, in a commercial C1 zone district. So there are existing access points which are to remain. There is one right here just south of the facility that is shared with Big O Tires. And then there will be one coming in off of Anchor heading towards the south. And this, basically this red line here, which is the western existing property line, that will also serve as an emergency access point and will be kept clear. So through this review, there were 4 main improvements that are being proposed to positively contribute to the neighborhood and to the city of Evans. The first will be employees. There are going to be up to 20 employees expected and up to 80 clients a day and up to 5 delivery trucks a week. Outdoor storage will be limited. The application represents the ultimate build out. So again, the immediate plan is to pave this area right here, which is to the west of their existing facility. They will be paving this area, adding some landscaping, and then this footprint on the southwestern portion is for an existing structure. Should they ever want to expand their use, they would expand here, and they went ahead and considered this footprint in their drainage. They considered the footprint into their overall site planning process. So if in 5 years they want to come back, they have the land use permit taken care of. So as traditional sharing with you all, as well as for the individuals that are in the audience, the special use permit is a 4-step process. The first is many meetings with staff, not just planning and community development staff, but we also meet with engineering staff, operations staff, to ensure that any application that comes in has already considered some of the hurdles a specific site may pose. And so the applicant did a great job working with staff. It is a site, a special use permit on a 0.8 acre parcel, and it will allow an existing business to expand. Once they submit the application, the process is that completeness review for the application submittal. Public notice is provided not only when we receive the application, but public notice is provided for this hearing this evening. Signs were posted, it was put in the newspaper, and surrounding property owners were noticed. We had a couple development review team meetings, which would involve city engineers, the operations folks. We had some additional meetings with the applicant just to clarify intent. Initial staff comments were provided, and the application was resubmitted just to address everything. And final staff comments were made and provided, and the applicant addressed all conditions of approval. And so we're here at a great hearing this evening. So again, public surrounding property owner notice was provided in December when the application was originally submitted, and again for this hearing process. It was published in the Greeley Tribune on May 11th, and the sign posted on the property was on May 13th, and the applicant was told that they had to make sure that the sign didn't blow down, and I think that they did a great job at making sure that happened. Planning Commission was held on May 26th as well as June 4th, and then we are here tonight for the final stage of this land use process. Next to come before you will be their site improvement agreement in a couple weeks or sometime in early August. So one more slide. Go ahead.
Nope. I'll wait till you're finished.
Okay. The criteria for review and approval. You see the criteria listed up here. There are 7. This is right from the city code. They have met this criteria of approval through some of their innovative design ideas. They're going to be having a bioswale to the south of the property that will help control some of the sediment transfer that's been happening on site. They're paving the property. The traffic circulation has been approved by both engineering, operations, and the fire protection district. And design standards have been met. And once they apply for a building permit for that building in the southwest corner, the design standards will be reviewed at that time as well. So this concludes my presentation.
I just have the same process comment that should council choose to approve this tonight on first reading, this is the other item on the agenda tonight that should be approved as amended for those non-substantive modifications that were made today. And I should have said this in the last one, council does have copies of those ordinances as amended at your dais.
Yeah.
That concludes staff's remarks.
Staff had just mentioned that the applicant is here. Does the applicant have anything they'd like to say to the city council this time? Thank you for being here.
Good evening, Kelsey Bruxford with Ag Professionals representing Fossum LLC. I do have a short presentation and then I'm happy to take any questions. We may not have a presentation.
Have to wing it.
So Quality Lube is an existing site. There we go. Lag time. It is an existing site. The lot to the west is currently a vacant dirt lot. And so the applicant recently purchased that lot to expand the parking area. While we were going through that process, we wanted to make sure we were considering, what if in 5 to 10 years I want to add another building? So we went ahead and made sure that the site could accommodate that. There are drainage improvements to capture the proposed improvements and treat it before it gets directed off-site. And I think that's it.
Okay.
I am happy to take any questions about the application.
Great, thanks. We'll get to
Thank
questions
you.
in just a second. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of this item? City Clerk, anyone online?
No.
Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in opposition to this item? City Clerk?
No.
Thank you. Questions or comments of our city staff or the applicant?
I do. This is for an expansion and it's going to create a mechanic shop. This is actually for the applicant.
You can step back up, please. Thank you.
I'm just wondering, is this an expansion of the Quality Lube? Are they going to be doing more lubes, or are they going to be doing mechanicking on vehicles? And what type of mechanic? Is it going to be vehicles or trucks or?
Yeah, so it's like an oil change place, and it's an established use that's been in the community. So the purpose of going through this process, even though it is classified as a special use permit for that, it's because it's an existing business already functioning as a mechanic shop. So really the purpose for this is to take that second lot and to allow for additional parking and then just better traffic flow through the site. And so with the increased efficiency, we're looking at being able to add a couple more employees and expect a little more business just with the increased efficiency of the site.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions of the applicant?
No question.
I have none.
Thanks.
But I do have a comment.
In just a second. Any other questions of staff? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Comments?
I'm in favor of this. I'm glad to see that we have a business in Evans that is expanding, and I look forward to hopefully approving this.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
I do agree. I'm also in favor because I also get my oil change there. So I really like all the improvements that are going to occur because the access and there isn't as much parking. So I think that will definitely provide more vehicles to come in and out, as well as more business, I believe, in that area. And considering that there's going to be more access to the location would also help the business. So I'm in favor for that.
Other comments? I'm also in favor of it. Thank you for choosing to do business in Evans and to stay in Evans and even expand on it. So we really appreciate that. If there are no other comments, I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve resolution number 14-2020 as proposed with the conditions of approval and development standards
Second.
As amended.
as amended.
I have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 14-200 as amended and with the conditions. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. I think you said aye. Opposed, nay? Motion passes. Thank you, guys. Next item on the agenda, consideration of approval of the Ziggy's Coffee Shop minor replat. We'll hear from staff.
Thank you, Mayor. This item is one step in the process that could potentially facilitate the location of a Ziggy's Coffee Shop in Evans. Just informally, I guess, would be located in the parcel adjacent to and east of Walgreens on 37th Street. With that, I'll turn it over to our planner, Lauren Richardson, for more of the formal presentation.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Rudy and members of City Council. Lauren Richardson, Evans City Planner. The franchise owner is here, Lisa Dell, and the applicant, Mr. Nick Bruca from MAH Architectural Group. And we are talking about Ziggy's Coffee Shop. So this application proposes two parcels from one, located right next to, as Jim said, the Walgreens off of 37th Street. Both parcels will share an access from 35th Avenue, and there is no proposed change of zone. This replat does comply with the Freedom Parkway Access Control Plan. I wanted to let you know. This is a screenshot of the proposed replat. As you can see, Lot 2A, a small one right here, would be the location for Ziggy's Coffee Shop. It would total 0.72 acres. The 2B is proposed at 1.4 acres. They currently have a site plan that has now been administratively approved for the coffee shop. The proposed lot size is compatible with surrounding lot sizes. While the surrounding lot sizes do vary, there are a lot of lots that are similar in size that are close by. Across 37th Street to the north, there lies a car wash that resides on 0.81 acres. Which is just slightly larger than the proposed Ziggy's 2A lot at 0.72 acres. I would further go to explain that Walgreens lot is a 1.687 acres, which is very similar to the lot to the north, which is the North Star Bank of Colorado property. The lot to the east of lot 2B is 1.3 acres, so creating very similar lots. And the process flow that you are aware of. The minor replat is in section 18.07.12. We started out with a pre-application meeting discussing the project scope with the design standards and review criteria. The application, they went through all of the application processes. The public notice, the surrounding property owners were notified in February. The Greeley Tribune had a published notice May 10th, and the sign was posted on the 13th of May. Planning Commission heard this proposal on the 6th of June. Planning Commission reviewed this application and recommend approval for City Council. Criteria for review and approval. 18.07.12C, plat corrections, was met, along with 18.07.12D, replats, lot lines, adjustments, and vacations. They did have all the submittal requirements for the 18.07.12F. They did have to follow the replat process, which they did satisfy all those requirements. Staff and referral agencies have found that this has met the criteria of approval and the intent of the minor replat process. Recommended motions are in the packet, and we are available to answer any questions you have. The applicant has a short presentation, and this concludes staff comments at this time.
Thank you. The applicant like to come up and show us your presentation, please.
Good evening. Am I doing it wrong? My name is Nick Bruca. I'm with MEH Architectural Group. I am the applicant for this project, and I'm making the assertion that the proposed replat maintains functional use and opportunity for the lot post-replat. We worked with a traffic engineer to ensure that on and off-site traffic circulation is maintained and efficient. And we worked with a surveyor, with a civil engineer, and with staff here at the City of Evans to ensure that the design of the site meets with easements and setback standards. That concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of the applicant or city staff?
No question.
Mayor Pro Tem, any questions?
I have none, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
If there are no other questions or comments, I would entertain a motion.
I do have a comment.
Okay, please, go ahead.
So this is exciting to have a coffee shop in that vicinity because there is none. And so it's definitely going to be an asset to that area. And thank you for coming in and bringing your business to Evans.
Other comments?
For some reason, I was zoning out. I was thinking that this was a public hearing, so I was waiting for that process. So my apologies. I actually do have a question regarding the access. Is it going? I can see based on the diagrams that people would probably be cutting off through 35th through the Walgreens to get to this. Obviously, Walgreens is not here to say anything about it, but I just want to say that I do have some concern over that I don't want to negatively affect the Walgreens, and I just wanted to point that out. I don't know what.
Will there be a buffer, or will Walgreens and Ziggy share the parking lot area?
It looks like on the south, I'm concerned on the south side. That's also where they have the drive-through for their pharmacy.
Yes.
And I know already, you have people that like to cut through there to avoid the traffic light. Maybe they'll cut through there and stop at Ziggy's and give them some business on the way out to 37. But I just wanted to see if there was any kind of plans or discussion, if anybody had talked to Walgreens about it, or.
If I may, that is a reserved right-of-way to access that lot.
Okay, perfect. That's all we need to know then. Great.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Councilmember Neal.
I have a question. Is Ziggy's owns this entire parcel? Do they plan to eventually develop the other parcel, the 2B parcel, or sell it? Or no, sorry.
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any other questions for the gentleman before he sits back down? Any other questions of staff or comments?
No questions or comments.
Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve ordinance number 717-20 on first reading as proposed with the conditions of approval and development standards.
Second.
As amended by our city attorney.
Actually,
This one wasn't?
this one's fine.
This one's good, okay. I have a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 717-20 on first reading as proposed with the conditions of approval and development standards. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thank you.
The second, is there a second?
What's that?
The resolution, 13-2020, underneath that. The third.
No, this one, not this motion.
one.
Good.
Funky thing in our
Yeah, it had an ordinance and it has a resolution.
You need resolution and ordinance.
So you have in front of you two things that look very, very similar. One is a resolution and one is an ordinance, and that's because of a glitch in your code that's on the list of things that we need to clean up.
Okay.
The replat process provides in one part for it to be approved by resolution and another part to be approved by ordinance. So out of an abundance of caution, we recommend that you approve both the ordinance that you have already approved as well as the resolution.
Okay, thank you.
I move to approve resolution number 13-2020 on first reading as proposed with the conditions of approval and development standards.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 13-2020 on first reading as proposed with the conditions of approval and development standards. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item C, consideration of agreement with Weld County regarding 2020 CARES Act funding, opt-in and allocation. We'll hear from staff.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an item that has come about in the last few weeks following the executive order from Governor Polis administering federal CARES Act funding. The CARES Act funding will make about $27.8 million available to Weld County for a couple purposes. First purpose is to cover costs, direct costs incurred since March 1st in response to the COVID-19 virus. And the second purpose would be to support businesses affected by the COVID-19 virus. So first one is to actually provide some reimbursement to the city, and then second would be reimbursement to businesses. So a couple different levels of discussion here. The first one is the step we're taking tonight, where one of the requirements from the state was, in order for the city or the county to opt in to the program, formally say, yes, we want to do this, there has to be an agreement between each county and all the cities in the county for how the money will be allocated among the county and the cities. So that's the first step, and that's really the step. That's the agreement that we have before you tonight, is just for us and all the cities of the county are going through the same process to adopt this agreement to opt in for the funding. The second step, which I only mention tonight because it will be a longer conversation in subsequent weeks, is the second point of the purpose, which is how to support businesses with the money. And there are several options, ranging from the city doing it ourselves to kind of going in with a city like Greeley, like we did with the Recovery Fund, or going in with the county on a county-wide fund that is being contemplated. But that'll be the main topic for discussion subsequently to this agreement, which is the action before you tonight. I will just summarize the amounts involved. As I mentioned, the county has been allocated $27.8 million. Of that, the city of Evans, per the proposed allocation, would be allocated $974,312. Sounds really good. And it is good. However, the limits on this funding are that it has to be, first of all, reimbursing direct city costs for responding to COVID. And for Evans, we've done some work, give credit to Jackie Trout for really keeping track of what we've spent so far on COVID, and also doing some projections based on what we've spent so far through the rest of the year, because that's when the money has to be spent. And so far, that's about 160, well, we project it's $161,000. So far, we've spent, I believe, about $75,000. So in the discussions with the county and all the cities and towns, first things we said were the main principle was everyone should have their direct costs covered. And once that happens, then we'll look at how we can support the businesses. So the way that is being contemplated in the agreement that you have before you tonight is that there would be, when you opt in, DOLA, Department of Local Affairs at the state, would have an account for each city to draw on with qualified expenses that can be reimbursed. And this, for the first cut, every city would have access to half of their total allocation. So for Evans, that's about $487,000. After, I believe, until September, that's the amount that each city would have available, is half of their total allocation. After September, there would be another conversation between the municipalities and the county for how to use that business support money or any money left where cities or towns, municipalities, haven't had all of their costs covered. So there'd be another discussion to make sure that all the municipalities and the county have their direct costs covered. And then whatever is left would be allocated back out per these same formulas to the municipalities for use to support businesses. So, to recap again, the agreement that you have before you tonight would simply agree with opting into this program through DOLA. It's the same agreement all of the municipalities are considering this week and next, trying to get it all done by the 1st of next month. It would say, yes, we want to do that, and we agree to the allocation methodology, which is attachment B, that shows that Evans' total allocation would be $974,312, and we're also agreeing that first we'll have half of that amount available till about September, and then, like all the other municipalities, there would be conversation about what to do with the rest. Bottom line for Evans, we'll get our $161,000 of projected direct cost covered, which is more than we thought we would do a month ago. We didn't expect that this money would be available. So that'll be a help to us. It'll be help with our 2020 budget. It is really good news, and the county and the municipalities have worked really well together to kind of come up with this funding allocation formula. With that, Mayor, we do have the agreements for your consideration and potential approval tonight that would simply let us opt in. And that concludes my remarks.
Thank you, Jim. Questions of staff or comments?
I just want to say that this is really good for the city. You know, that amount definitely helped our budget constraints that we have so far for this year. And I would hope that any additional amount the city does receive, that we can utilize it towards our small businesses that have been impacted throughout the city. So I'm in favor of it.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Other questions or comments?
I'm also in favor of it. I am excited that we are able to access the money that has been provided to us or allocated for us. And I know you had mentioned that we'll speak about this later, but I also feel as though the city should take on the task to distribute the remaining funds to our local businesses. I think that would be a great effort on our part, just so we can place those parameters on with the amounts and what needs to be allocated to who. So.
Other comments or questions? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve the collaborative agreement related to the distribution of the CARES Act funding.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the collaborative agreement related distribution, CARES Act funding. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item D, consideration of emergency ordinance number 716-20 to implement ballot measures 2A approving a 1% increase in sales and use tax upon motor vehicle sales. And we'll hear from staff.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple meetings ago, the council approved an ordinance implementing Measure 2A that would put into place the new sales tax to support roads. In preparation, we've been communicating with businesses and doing the other work required to start receiving that revenue. We realized that one section of our code to which the tax would apply, it's actually the sales tax on motor vehicles, had not been included in your ordinance that you saw a couple meetings ago. So the ordinance before you tonight would correct that oversight. It would make the new tax apply to motor vehicles as was fully intended in the ballot measure, and doing it by emergency ordinance would enable the tax to be uniformly applied starting July 1, which is the first date of the tax. And with that, I'm glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jim. Comments or questions of staff?
None.
Just glad that the staff found the oversight and corrected it.
Any other questions or comments?
None.
Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I move to adopt ordinance number 716-20.
I second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance number 716-20. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item E, consideration of IGA with Weld County for the overlay of 37th Street between 17th Avenue and UPRR Railroad. We'll hear from staff.
Thank you, Mayor. The staff report in your packet has lots of information, background on the project and the funding, but the long and the short of it is that when this project was approved, this is for the overlay project on 37th Street, we not only received a grant from CDOT and federal funding, but we also received funding and a commitment from Weld County for $100,000 to make this project work. That helped with the local match and really helped this project to gain the points that it needed to get that larger $1 million, almost $1 million grant. So tonight, the IGA before you simply approves the agreement with Weld County to receive the funding that will help us to get this project done this year. That's all I have, Mayor.
Questions or comments of staff?
I have none.
Have none.
No questions or comments? I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve the intergovernmental agreement with Weld County IGA for the 37th Street overlay project and authorize the mayor's signature on the grant agreement.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the intergovernmental agreement with Weld County IGA for the 37th Street overlay project and authorize the mayor's signature on the grant agreement. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item 9, report, city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a brief update tonight on the street maintenance work that is very focal for us this year. The 2020 concrete replacement program has already been completed. We began on June 3rd the asphalt patching program that will be done in several areas around town. That work will also include those larger patches later in the summer for 37th Street and other areas that receive lots of traffic. And the surface treatment project, which is largely chip seal this year will be going out to bid this week and next, and we'll hope to bring that to you so that that work can keep moving. That's all that I have tonight, Mayor.
Thank you. City Attorney?
Thank you, Mayor and members of City Council. Just two quick items. Most of you have probably heard Senate Bill 217 has passed the legislature and headed to the governor for signature. Will have substantial impacts on your police department over well, some of it comes into effect almost immediately. Some of it is phased in through 2023, so you'll be hearing more of that. And then on the COVID front, there is now a new Protect Our Neighbors program that the governor intends to roll out this week that should make obtaining variances from some of the restrictions easier to obtain, not necessarily just having to go through your county, but some other avenues may be available. And then also, as far as the Safer at Home program, we should be getting some more guidance. I think it's supposed to come out tomorrow on the reopening process. So those are just things to watch for, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Scott. Next item on the agenda is audience participation. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address City Council on any item? Anyone virtually, City Clerk?
No.
Thank you. Meeting adjourned.